a different experience. So there's a lot of pros to it, but the process to get there was tough. And, I'm glad I did it. I really enjoyed, like I said, the scenery. I saw the Golden Gate Bridge and all these different things around the country, all within a matter of days. I've been to 40 states now. So a lot of the states I've been to before doing the truck driving, but now my state total count is about 40, and hope to be in all 50 states at one point. So
yeah, that's fascinating. It's we in the span of this conversation, we've talked about all the different things and many more. We just don't have all the time to talk about everything. But, from being a stockbroker, being a financial advisor for a Fortune 500 company, making...
At one point when I was working at a top financial institution in the world, but,
Okay.
I hate them. I hate them, but,
right. But hey, you did it. You did it.
They're
and
an
you
evil
made a lot of
company,
money. And you drove fancy cars. You've lived all different aspects of life. And I think that you've done things that people say they're going to do. You've actually gone out and did it. And people say, hey, I want to jump in the ring, put on a pair of boxing gloves, and go compete, at Madison Square Garden or at the Barclays Center. You've gone and done that. Like you said, you've worked for these Fortune 500 financial companies. I've seen you with fancy cars, made a lot of money. So how many people say, hey, I'd love to drive a truck and go cross country? Yeah. Some people it's just an idea or something they like to do. You go out and you do these things, and I think that's so fascinating. Every time I talk to you, you have a different idea, something you may want to do, and I think that's the fully, a full life. As I said before, you are a Renaissance man, and, to live that kind of life where you really do, you march to the beat of your own drum, and I think that's really cool, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what I'd like to ask you is, are there any books that you would recommend to anyone? Any books you've enjoyed reading lately?
Nothing I can think of off the top of my head. I got the prequel to the Game of Thrones book as a Christmas gift. I haven't, Fire and Blood, I think it's called. I haven't read it yet, though. But nothing I could think of off the top of my head.
And do you like Game of Thrones? Is that one of your...
I didn't read the books before they came on television, so I think this will be the first time I'm reading it before seeing it.
And what about TV shows? What are some of your favorite TV shows, or anything that you really enjoyed watching lately?
Lately.
Or ever. What do you like?
Lately I'm into a lot of the stuff that's on Showtime and HBO, and Power on Stars, and Ray Donovan on Showtime, Shameless on Showtime.
A lot of Shameless fans out there. What I'd like to ask you is, for any of the different endeavors you've been involved with, and you pick one, pick two maybe, there's so many times just someone has one sort of area that they've specialized in. You have so many. Is there any bit of advice you think could be valuable for the people out there watching on any of the particular things, whether it's setting up your TV show, your blog, being involved as a boxer in Golden Gloves, getting involved in finance, a truck driver, starting your own business? Any advice for any one of those things that you think would be helpful someone might not know?
It seems overwhelming to a lot of people, even just starting with the taxi with Uber or something, the process of getting it out. We live in a world where there's Google and there's YouTube, and you literally have people teaching you how the process is of what you need to do what it is, So whether it's video editing, instead of paying for a class or trying to find somebody to teach you, just go on YouTube and watch, and you could see how to do certain things, So or not necessarily watch a video, but you could just read and look up, because that's I wonder how this, and then go online, and the next thing you know, I have all this information about it, and then it's like, all right, I'm going to do it, So, I would more advise to not be a jack of all trades, and I've heard that from numerous people. Just stick to one thing, and and that'll probably be a lot less stressful than trying to juggle so many things at once. And I think my area of expertise is financial services, and I don't think, because I've studied that a lot and I've had so many years of experience in it. So if I, jack of all trades, master of none, I think I'm a master in the financial services industry.
Well, my next question was going to be, would you change anything about yourself if you could? And it seems like maybe not try to be...
Well, see, the thing is, if I would have stayed in financial services and just focused on that full time my entire life, I'd be a millionaire. I'd have a lot more money than I do now, but I wouldn't have accomplished as much as I did. Right. Like I wouldn't be more as fulfilling. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. You wouldn't, like you said, people say, I always wanted to do this. Like, people, they talk about people on their deathbed and they think of all the regrets that they've had. And, if I died tomorrow, I'd say I've accomplished more in one lifetime, and I'm not even 40 yet, than probably 10 people have done, Right. So, just doing all those various things. So I don't think I have any regrets. I think everything happens for a reason. I mean, I can't think of a regret right now. Like, everybody thinks, I wish I would have done this, I wish I would have done that, but everything happens for a reason, and I'm here now, and, there's still a lot more to go in the future. Yeah. Hopefully I do run for office and make a lot of the changes and a lot of the messed up programs, especially from de Blasio.
Well, that's a great attitude, I think, to have. One last question, and that is, who in your mind is an example of a successful person or a success?
Just anybody in the world?
To you.
Donald Trump.
Why not, right?
I mean, you can't get more successful than that. Speaking of doing things, like he talked about how he didn't want to run for president for about 30 years, and people have been asking him to run, and he's talked about, I remember the interview in the 80s on the Oprah show, and how he talked about the one thing I would do is, change the trade deals with China. And, that was over 30 years ago that he was on Oprah talking about it. And, and every time he's asked, he's like, I'm making a lot of money. I'm happy doing what I want to do. Because you think about it, like, if you're a billionaire and you're living this lavish lifestyle with, and then you're going to take on the responsibility of being president of the United States. So he said, I remember in that interview, he'll only do it if things get really, really bad. And I think it was at the point where things were getting really, really bad, and he's tired of waiting for somebody else to do the job. So he went out and did it. And, you can't get more successful than that. Being, some people like, Obama and the Clintons, they get rich after politics, and he was rich and then goes into politics. And I remember as a kid, Ross Perot, and I thought, very young age, I was I think 11 years old, watching the debate, and it was Perot, Clinton, and Bush, and I thought of it as like, he's a billionaire, he's not going to be corrupted by money, like, he seems like somebody that he can't be bought, and that was my thought as a youth, and I liked the way he talked, and he's probably the reason why Bush didn't get elected and we had Clinton, because I think he took a lot of the voters away from Bush. But I mean, I'm not worried about politicians who are rich and then go into politics. I'm more worried about the people who want to get rich and use politics as a way to do it.
Right. Who was it? Was it Truman who made a remark about that? I may have been Truman, who said, be wary of politicians who become rich while in office. Yeah. I think it speaks to corruption.
And I think that needs to be adjusted more, where there's some type of, I know it happens in some places in politics where there's limits on different restrictions on money that you could make, but I think there needs to be more of that. And I think that there definitely needs to be term limits in Congress and the U.S. Senate. That's something that, hopefully we see that in the near future, because I don't think our founding fathers intended for people to be career politicians and making a living off of that. You're
Right.
supposed to make your impact and move
along.
on. Yeah.
All right. Return back home after